What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dean, aka the Blue Crusader, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make YouTube thumbnails. This is going to be using Adobe Photoshop. For people who can't use Photoshop, I'd recommend trying some sort of free program. GIMP is basically the same thing. Just go to, I think it's gimp.net, you can download that, that's completely freeware, or you can get the Adobe Photoshop trial if you can't afford the full software. So what we're going to be doing is creating a thumbnail. So I'm going to click new first to create a new project, and we have two choices of resolution to make the thumbnail. Okay, so you can make the thumbnail as a 720p thumbnail or a 1080p thumbnail. It doesn't really matter, it's still going to be upscaled and downscaled in YouTube, and the actual full resolution is never going to be as big as any of those values. But if you make a 720p thumbnail, you can't actually fit as much into the thumbnail size. I realized this a while ago, so I started upgrading my thumbnail size. I had 720p thumbnails for probably about 2 years, and then I realized the 1080p thumbnail allowed me to cram more in and actually have more stuff inside the thumbnail. So what you want to do is go to custom, and over here you can just call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it thumbnail because we don't really need to give it a name. And then under pixels, I'm going to do 1920 by 1080 because that's what a 1080p resolution would be. Orientation, you can leave it. It should be on pixels though. Make sure it's not on centimeters or inches, otherwise you're going to kind of struggle finding the right size. Then leave everything default. RGB color, you can put this to 32-bit. I'm just going to leave it on 8. And in the background contents, you can select the actual background color. So this should be white, but you can also click on it and actually click the color yourself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click create, and this should make a new canvas with 1080p as the size or 720 depending on what you picked. Now I'm just going to make an example thumbnail in this video because we don't really have a specific thing that we're going to be trying to make. I'm going to make a thumbnail for a Minecraft video. Okay, so basically I'm going to be doing a thumbnail for a Minecraft video. I'm going to make this Minecraft thumbnail about Herobrine, which is basically kind of like a spooky creature or creepypasta in the game. So I already have some screenshots here. As you can see, if I drag them on the screen, I already have a whole host of pictures which I've taken for various past videos, and I have already made this specific thumbnail for an older video. So here's some thumbnails. Basically you want to go through them and figure out which are the best pictures. So we could click on whatever picture you had and we can open them up and figure out what's the best. Now obviously you can get pictures off Google Images, you can get screenshots, you can take pictures in games or make pictures yourself depending what type of video you're making. But for Minecraft we've taken a lot and we have all the screenshots. So we have some screenshots of our base being lit on fire and some pretty spooky stuff happening. Okay, so it seems like this is probably the best picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that picture into Photoshop and it'll automatically drag it into the scene. Now it's nearly big enough, but you'll see, just press enter, and it's nearly big enough, but you'll see we have white bars on the top and bottom. So you want to press Ctrl and T and that resizes stuff, and you can just pull it up and pull it down. Now if you want to actually resize it like this, it'll give you free reign over resizing it. The only problem is it's not going to actually give you the same resolution. So when you resize it, it's not going to be the right aspect ratio. Everything's going to go up and down and it's going to look skewed. So the way to do this is hold shift and then drag the corner to the direction you want, and it'll resize it, but it'll be the same dimensions. So I'm going to make it into the full screen like I showed you, and now we have this image. So what we could do now is we could put some text over it. So I'm going to put some text over it, and I'm going to put Herobrine, which is basically kind of like an evil Minecraft Steve. So I'm going to put Herobrine and then make this into red text. And then I can position it on the screen by dragging it and press Ctrl and T again, and then shift drag to actually make our text bigger, and I'm going to put it over here. Now this font, let's be honest, looks pretty terrible. I think if anybody went on this video and found it, they would not want to click on this thumbnail, especially because it just doesn't really pop. So I'm going to click the little text tool on the left and click in the text to select it, and then double click it to highlight it, and this little drop down box at the top is the font section. So I'm going to go down and find a font that I want. Now obviously if you've already installed fonts, you can get them off different websites. I've installed absolutely tons of fonts, so I probably have a lot more to choose from than you, for an example. So if you want some kind of font, you can Google horror fonts or action fonts or video game fonts, and you can find a whole host of fonts. So I'm going to go down and try and find some kind of horror font that I like, and that looks decent. You could probably make a better font, but that looks pretty decent to me. If I right click it and click on blending options, we can make this text look a little bit better. So if I bevel it, this will basically add a little bit of a glow to the outside and it'll make it pop more like it's 3D. And we can also add a contour, which we can't really notice the difference right now. And you can change the range. If I change the range lower, you can see it does actually impact the actual middle of the text. So this kind of pops more, it seems more vibrant. You can also add a texture over it, and then you can select a pattern. So you can kind of make it look like it's sewed, or with this it looks like it's made out of rock. And you can basically just add textures to the actual text, which looks pretty cool. We can add a stroke, which basically means if we click on it, we can select the color. So we select white for an example, and it will add an outline, and depending on the size of the outline, we can put an outline on the text. So we're going to put a low outline on it, like that, just so you can kind of see it more. And we can also turn down the opacity as well to kind of make it look more spooky. So I'm going to leave it like that. You can also put it down to black, which looks more spooky. So then what we can do is you can pop an inner shadow. I'm actually going to put it to a black outline because I feel like that fits the colors more. And we can add an inner shadow, as you can see. So we can change the distance of the shadow, the size of the shadow, which drops a lot of dark light on it, and we can change the angle of the shadow like that. So now this text looks a whole lot different depending where the shadow's been drawn. We can turn up the opacity. You want to keep it kind of low for a shadow. We can add inner glow, which if we turn up the noise, it looks worse, but basically it adds more vibrance into the actual text. You can add a satin, which is another overlay. A color overlay basically just changes the text color of the image, so we can just easily change the text color to something like blue for an example. I'm going to turn that off because we want it as red. Gradient overlay is if you want a certain pattern, so we can have a pattern automatically in here. I've downloaded lots of different gradients which are really nice, so I can just quickly use them on demand, but for you there will probably be only like 3 or 4 defaults. So we can select these and it will actually give us kind of like a pattern on our text, so we could make it more spooky. You can go down, maybe we can find a nice red pattern that we can use just like that, which makes the text look really nice, and I'm going to select that. Without the gradient it still looks pretty cool, but with the gradient it looks more dark. So now I'm going to press OK, and if we zoom out, you can see that we kind of do have some pretty nice text now. If we zoom out, you can kind of tell what it says, which is pretty cool. And if we resize it to make it larger, it will be easier for the viewer to actually see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the image. So this image is selected, and then go up to the top and click image, adjustments, and then brightness and contrast. So now we can make it brighter, and then we can turn up the contrast to make it look kind of more dark and sinister. And what this does is it makes the thumbnail easier to see for the viewer, but it makes everything pop. So even though it's brighter, everything still kind of looks darker and it has harsher tones to it. So it's still more visible to the eye, and we can turn up the vibrance, which makes everything look more green. And as you can see, when we turn up the vibrance, everything just looks entirely more evil, especially when we turn up the saturation. Then you can mess around with the color balance for an example. We can turn up the cyan, and then we can turn down the magenta for an example, and mess with the yellows. And basically we're just making this thumbnail look really sinister and evil. So hue and saturation is a very similar thing as well. You can mess with all these settings. They just basically change how the colors are, and we can change the saturation yet again. So this is just another method. Add more saturation. Then we can turn down the lightness a little bit. So now you'll see when we zoom out, if this was on YouTube, this thumbnail would really pop because the color set looks really dark, but it looks really vibrant and all the colors are kind of bleached, so it will really grab a user's attention when they see it. Now, what you can also do is a lot of people like to add arrows to the images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just go on Google, and I'm going to Google red arrow. So I'm going to type in red arrow and then click on clip art, and I'm going to get one of these arrows. Now we want to find one that actually fits with our image, so I'm going to get this long one and then right click and click copy, and then press Ctrl and V to paste it into Photoshop. And I'm going to click on this magic wand tool here and click on the white, and that'll select all of that one color surrounding the image, and then press delete and Ctrl and D to deselect, and then we have our arrow cut out. So now we have our arrow. This just grabs the user's attention. Basically arrows on YouTube just grab people's attention. So I'm just going to shorten the arrow, and what I'm going to do is a red arrow is going to be pointless because the image is basically all red. So I'm going to basically rename this layer, and then I'm going to right click on the arrow layer on the side right like we did before, click on blending options, and then go to color overlay, and we can make it either yellow or we can make it white. and you can see that white pops pretty hard as well because it's completely the opposite. Now if we zoom out, you can clearly see that white arrow. So as you can see, we have a lot of space on this side to fill. So what I could do is I could go to Google again, and I could type in Herobrine, which is a character from Minecraft, and I could grab some kind of character and then edit him in. So if you see this character here, this looks pretty cool. It kind of fits in with our dark style, so I could copy this, paste this in exactly the same as I did before, and then what we could do is we could use the magic wand to delete all of that white like we did before. So now we have this character and he's in the right, so I'm going to resize it like we did before, and I'm going to put him on the left side and pop him right there. And then as you can see, it should be pretty visible from the left. So now we have Herobrine in the corner, and then we have this house burning. But I feel like the house should still be visible burning, so I'm going to select the back layer, Ctrl and T, and resize this layer a little bit bigger so it kind of is big enough so you can see the house as well, and then pull it down a little bit, and then I'm going to press enter and it'll update it. So now we can see everything on the right side including the text, but we'll also be able to see the character on the left as well. So that looks better. Now we're going to drag this arrow over, and I'm just going to put this in the middle, and I'm going to drag it on the right, that arrow layer, over the top of this character layer, and then we've got an arrow to point to the character. I'm going to put an arrow here, which isn't going to be very visible, but it'll still catch a little bit of attention, and I'm going to point that to our character. So now we have a little arrow there, and I'm going to double click on the color overlay on the arrow layer and change the color to something that's more obvious. So we could change it to green because that's going to be completely different to all the colors, or we could change it to a yellow. So I'm going to change that to a nice yellow because that's very visible. So the arrow is not too easy to see, but you can see that it is pointing to something and people wonder what the arrow is. And we can also right click and go in blending options and add a stroke to the arrow to add a bit of an outline so people can see it more. So that will point a little bit more attention to it. We can also click on the character layer we've just pasted, blending options, and add a stroke to that as well, and we'll just make it small, and now you can see there's an outline to the character. We could make that white so you can see the character more, as you can see, so the character really pops. The only problem is it then focuses too much on the character, so we're probably going to make that into a black outline. You can also put it on the inside, which I think looks better, because if you see, if I just zoom in, you can see that the edges are kind of not cut right. You can see there's a little bit of white on the edges, so it doesn't look so good. So if we click on position on the inside, it will basically look a lot better. So I'm going to do that and then zoom out. And this is our thumbnail we've made. We've made kind of like an evil Herobrine thumbnail for Minecraft. So if this video helped you, definitely smash a like button on this video, click subscribe and turn on notifications for daily gaming videos like Minecraft and GTA 5, and drop a comment below if this video helped you make an awesome thumbnail. You can also tell me to check out your channel. Don't leave any links, but if you want me to check out your channel, I will look at the thumbnails and see what you guys have made. So make sure to subscribe before you click off the video. But the last thing you want to do is click on File, Save As, and then when you go into your folder, it should come up with My Pictures. Just select which folder you want to save it in, and then click on Photoshop.psd at the bottom. You can save it as a .psd, which will save the thumbnail template so you can open it in Photoshop next time and edit it and make new thumbnails, or you can change the .psd to a JPEG, which is what YouTube thumbnail should be, and then just give it the name of the thumbnail you want. So I'm going to call it Minecraft Herobrine tutorial thumbnail, just so I know what this is, and then click save, and a pop-up will come up. Leave it on around 9 to 10 quality so it's small enough for YouTube to actually allow you to upload it, and you can change the quality. Don't put it on the largest size because usually YouTube only has like a 1 or 2 MB, I'm pretty sure it's a 2 MB upload limit, and then press OK and it'll save it as a brand new thumbnail. And now that's everything done. You can use these basic fundamentals of making new text and customizing text to make it look better, using different fonts, cutting out certain images and putting them in your thumbnail, and editing the different vibrance, brightness and saturation of images and putting certain arrows in. So depending on what type of video you make, you can kind of apply these all to the same thing. But if you're making a gaming thumbnail, then my example is probably going to be the most beneficial for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.